Good morning. Welcome to Gordcast live stream. A little earlier than usual, but circumstances I heard yesterday was kind of shocked to a degree that I heard the Director of Officials for Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association had put in his resignation. And I had been a co-worker of Mike Edmunds for my whole time when I was, Challenge Cup Commissioner. I think Mike took over from Rob Antle, and that would be back maybe 6 years ago or so, somewhere in that proximity. So I contacted Mike, and I asked Mike, was it true, first of all? And he said yes. Then I said, secondly, I don't want you to tell me a lot, Mike, but will you be willing to go on a Gordcast live stream one-on-one? And I think there is a lot of curiosity out there in the general public. I think Mike has officiated a number of years, I would say 20 plus years with Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer. He has gone to maybe possibly the highest heights that you could go in Canada. And I thought, to be honest with you, I think he's one of the best NLSA referees that have ever done the game. And he had his time. He saw fit when to move on. He has moved on. And now where he's been Director of Officials, he made this announcement. And I know he was a guy that I conversed with on a regular basis. I respect his judgment. And now when I asked him to come on. So anyway, Mike, I'd like to welcome you to the Gordcast live stream here this morning. And I thank you for coming in, Mike.
Thank you, Gord.
Okay, Mike. The people of the province, the soccer followers, are going to question, how come, Mike? Why now?
First of all, Gord, thanks for having me. With me, basically, the decision was 100% strictly, I just don't have the time to put into the system and in the program what I think the program needs. I recently changed careers and went back to school, and I have landed a new job, and I'm extremely busy. I work very long hours. I do a lot of travel at times, and I don't have time to be answering the phones, doing emails, following up on this and that. And unfortunately, the province needs somebody to do that. And as you say, I had 6 years. There comes a time in everyone's life, and any decision you make, when you know you need to go. And this has been bothering me for a little bit, and I made the decision there. Probably about 2 weeks ago, I came to fruition with it, and then I advised the President, Doug Redmond, yesterday.
Oh. And so obviously I had heard through the grapevine, so you have handed in your official resignation to the President, which is Doug Redmond of Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer.
That is correct. I've emailed the Board of Directors, and I've also spoken one-on-one to Doug and advised him of that. Doug himself, he expected this. He knew it was coming. I've had long conversations with Doug Redmond, who I have an awful lot of respect for, to his work that he's done in the last numerous years with soccer, and I only felt it was necessary to be up to speed with him on it.
Okay, so anybody other than Gordcast, anyone from the media are aware of this yet, or you don't know?
I don't know. For me, you found out yesterday through your contacts and gave me a jingle. I'm sure the word is out there. It officially went out to the Canadian Soccer Association yesterday, the refereeing body, the board of directors. So in soccer, everybody talks. It's one thing I can guarantee. Everybody knows. Everybody talks. So I would say the word has gone out. I received a message this morning from a coach involved with the Challenge Cup League, who told me that, sadly, he said, you're going to be missed. I'm going to miss calling you and complaining, but I still hope to see you around the field. So, which was nice. I'm not done with soccer at all. I don't want to make this look or sound as something bigger than what it should be, but my time is up. I've been involved in the game for a very long time, a very small playing career, and then I went refereeing. I'm at the stage now where there needs to be more people to move on. I'm involved in the assessing and the coaching, mentoring ranks of officials. I'll still continue to do that at any level, from the grassroots right up to our top senior people, and help out in whatever capacity Newfoundland Soccer wants me. The St. John's Senior Soccer League wants me, further games pertaining in the league, and even Canadian Soccer Association whenever they want me for anything. I'm not done with soccer at all.
Okay, so you're really moving out of the director of NLSA as NLSA official, but and that's as you mentioned, alluded to, that is that is an appointment by the president of the NLSA. So I'm right in reading on that, eh?
According to the Constitution of Newfoundland Soccer, the Director of Officials is a presidential appointment. So I'm sure President Doug Redmond is looking at different individuals. If he has somebody already, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll have somebody named to the position rather soon. Knowing Doug, he likes to be on top of things, and he'll have somebody in place rather quickly, I would think.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think in all official capacities that one works with the NLSA, I think there's a shelf life for each individual. And I think, Mike, you came in, you followed the footsteps of Robbie Antle. I think Robbie had done a great job. Prior to Robbie, I'm not quite sure if Kev Pittman held that position or not. Would you know, Mike?
Kev was the director of referees himself for a period of time. The program itself has changed a lot over the course of itself. Kevin Pittman has done a fantastic job as a national list official. Kevin used to get appointments every single year, going to various national tournaments, university nationals, and so on. But the program has changed. Towards the latter stages of Rob Antle's time as a national list official, the referees were doing semi-pro and professional level games in what used to be called the A League, the USL 2 League, the NLSA 1 League. The names have changed significantly. When I came through after Rob left, there was more opportunities, and I was on the list for almost 6 years. For 3 years, I was a regular being used every once or twice a month in peak time. And 1 year I got some really big appointments, and that was primarily due to how I did on the field, being 100% fit, and so on. So the program itself is spiraling in the good direction. Any official now who comes through and makes it to the national list, the sky's the limit. There's referees who I went through the program with now that are traveling every single weekend into the United States for MLS. And now with the expansion of video system refereeing, what they call VAR, there's guys being used for that at all different levels. So the opportunity for people in the program, in the country, in our region, the CONCACAF, is immense. It is absolutely tremendous. I have a buddy of mine, Joe Fletcher, again, just got appointed to the 2018 World Cup in Russia. He was in the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, and him and his partners, his two American officials, just got appointed to Russia. So,
Mike, I know over the years I have traveled the country, and obviously I met NLSA officials across the country. One that I have great admiration for, and to this day I highly respect, is Kevin Jones. I'm sure, Mike, you know Kevin Jones. What's your thoughts on Kevin Jones?
Kevin Jones, how do I say, put Kevin in perspective? Kevin's a very, very attention to detail, thorough man. I have a lot of respect for Kevin as well. Kevin came from New Zealand, moved to Canada, was a national list official, and then when he hit a certain age, he gave it up and he took on the administrative part of it. In my short time now of being an assessor at a certain different level, I've learned an awful lot from Kevin Jones. Kevin has sent me a message already when he heard through the grapevine.
Yeah.
Great guy. He's been here several times as supervisor of officials. Really, really class act guy. He's attention to detail. He's very thorough, but he's one person who definitely sees the bigger picture in soccer itself.
Yeah.
And he's all about the development of people at the next level of the professional ranks.
That's what I found with Kevin. That's why I am very demanding on whatever I do myself. I felt right from day one when I met Kevin Jones, I felt I think he aimed high, and his demand was high. But I think in order to have a successful program, I think Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association, on the officiating side, I would think, Mike, under your guidance and people prior to you, I think our officiating is in great hands, Mike.
It is. At the end of the day, like anything, you could always want more. We need more officials. I took this over from Rob Bentel, who just recently got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Took it over from Rob. Rob did well. Prior to Rob was Martin Batterson, and right prior to Martin, if my memory is correct, would be Kevin.
Okay.
All three great people who I've come after the fact, who've done what they can with the program. It's not always easy. At the end, sometimes with officials, we can be used as a scapegoat for when things don't go right or they go wrong. And you're dealing with a smaller body of people to choose from, smaller entity, and a smaller political world of who gets what of the pie, what piece of the pie when it comes time to divvying up things. But we are, we do have numbers. I won't say we're strength in numbers, and I won't say we're strength in quality in numbers. But what we do have is quality, whether any of our viewers agree with it or not. But we do have quality, and we could always just use more.
Yeah. I know you just mentioned Rob Entel, and Rob got inducted the past Friday night into the Provincial Hall of Fame. I just saw a message come in from Lynn Slaney, who obviously you would know Lynn from his days in St. Lawrence, and like you say, there was probably no one greater in the history of the Laurentians in who has organized the program right from his involvement from university years, and not only administering. He coached me at a minor level, and he said, and there's no one that I hold in higher regards to come out of St. Lawrence with regards to being the backbone of the Laurentians from behind the scene is Lynn Slaney. When Lynn Slaney just said he's sorry to see you go, Mike, and he also feels that you yourself had a Hall of Fame career.
Oh, I'm very appreciative to hear that from someone like Lynn. Lynn is somebody, when I came onto the scene of refereeing around the age of 17, he was somebody that when you went to the field, you were like, okay, who's this guy? And when I finally got to know who he was somebody I would consider, for lack of better words, a big wig and a know-it-all in a very positive way. Yeah. Respected guy. Love to see him again. Len is somebody over the course of time who was probably brutally honest with me on the sidelines as well, like yourself, Gord. And I respect that with the likes of many people from the Burin Peninsula area and all over different parts of the province.
Yeah, I kindly ask. I'm having a great number of soccer personnel coming on viewing this here today. This was sort of unexpected. It caught me. With me here today on Gordcast live stream, I have Mike Edmunds. Mike has been a former official, top-ranked official in Newfoundland and Labrador and the country, mind you. And yesterday he announced, now he didn't announce it to me, but my contacts made contact to me and told me last night that Mike Edmunds has handed in his resignation as Director of Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association, Director of Officials. When I contacted him, he said, yes, Gord, it is true. Well, I said, that's going to be, you know what? That's going to be sort of a shocker throughout the province. Maybe not for the people directly involved, but for the people, the followers of the game. I think for some administration, maybe some may have seen it coming because Mike had changed career. He went back to school. Now he has a new career with a new employer. So I asked Mike, let's do a Gordcast. So again, I'm very appreciative of the fact that I'm in my own home here. Mike sees the little studio that I have set up, and I thank Mike for coming in. So anyway, folks, for you, I ask you to share because this is very newsworthy to Newfoundland and Labrador soccer, because we are virtually on the eve of a new season. Last weekend was the annual awards and Hall of Fame banquet on Friday night. Saturday was the AGM and spring planning meeting. So for me to hear it today, I was kind of, yesterday, I was kind of taken back. So again, guys, it's Mike Edmunds has handed in his resignation to Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association. And for, again, I just wanted to know, Mike, let's get some clarity on this. I see my sister who is in Mexico joining in. Joyce, enjoy your vacation, and we'll be chatting later. Anyway, Mike, I'm getting back to Mike here right now. Again, guys, I ask all of you to share this on your mobile or on your computer. I want this to get out, and I want to let Mike have his say, because I honestly have had a lot of respect for this guy. I still have the respect for this guy, but I think timing is everything in no matter what you do. And I think I'd like to see Mike around, but I think Mike right now, I think we'll move on. I don't think you're going to walk away from the game. It's like Gord is no longer a commissioner, but I tell you, I feel there's different areas of the game that you can get involved in, rather than just sitting down at a boardroom meeting, because you know why, you kind of outwear your shelf life. So Mike, I think your timing personally is right. I do think that you have a lot to contribute moving forward. You're a young man, 36 years of age, and Mike, but because of your career, I would think that probably has impacted your decision the most. So Mike, okay, you resign now. What do you directly do now for the rest, let's say in starting for this season in 2018?
All I did was lose a title. My role in soccer is not going to change at all. I'll never see anybody in the province stuck for anything pertaining to soccer. Anybody from any region that has a question or concern, my number hasn't changed. Pick up the phone and give me a call. My email hasn't changed. Send me an email. The program of Newfoundland Labrador Soccer and all its clubs and regions have been very good to me. I can't turn my back on anybody. I won't do it. I'm still going to be around. I just won't be in the capacity of the head of officials or director of officials. I'm still going to referee locally in the City League here, St. John's League, pending on availability for my work and so on, provincial league games. And if there happens to be any type of issues or hiccups that comes around for officials and they need someone to fill in last second for Challenge Cup or Jubilee, by all means, I'll be only happy to do it. And I'll be looking forward to it as well. For me, my whole basis, as I said earlier, Gord, is very strictly, I don't have the time to put into the system anymore, to the program. I just don't have it. 36. Some people probably listening will say, you're only a young pup. It's true, only a young pup. But being involved at the age of 17 doing Labor Day weekends, it takes its toll. And I was thinking about this on my way driving over, about players. There's a couple of players who would come to my mind in regards to, they've been at all these provincial finals just as much as I've been. And the last two, I haven't been involved in refereeing, but I've still been involved in the administrative side and so on. And they'd be Clinton Edwards and Mark Reddy. Both of them, like myself, born 81 and 81 babies. Their longevity in soccer, and over the course of time, Clinton, who took up a new career and moved away but still came home to do it last year, my hats are off to these players. And then there's many players that are probably 2 and 3 years younger than them, like Kevin Orme, Mark Pittman, Paul Slaney, John Douglas, Jeremy Babstock, Steve Howell, Steve Croft. Those guys themselves, I mean, hats off to these people as well for over the course of time. These are the people who I directly came through the system with. And I know there's many people who are a few years older than them. And I use someone like Craig Edwards this past weekend who got inducted in Hall of Fame. These guys just gave their all. They worked, they trained, they played, and they committed to Labor Day weekends or whatever the soccer at the time had for its finals. So my hats go off to anybody like this. who's involved, especially players and coaches, volunteers, and even officials. It's not easy. Many stories and memories from the Burin Peninsula, from the West Coast, from King George to games away and the national list. A lot of fond memories, a lot of great people I met over the course of time, and I still plan to associate with these great people. I hope they will still associate with me in my capacity of, now I'm just Mike and not Director of Officials.
I think as you, just as much as you are handing your I feel your regards and your respect to those individuals, I think those individuals feel the same way as you, because if you are an official and you can walk downtown St. Lawrence, if you can go into Trophy Lounge, and I think respect is shown, I think you know why? You have earned the respect on the field. Right here, right now, I also have, anybody wants to make a comment, I will try to pass the comment along to Mike as well. I can't put in everyone that is just coming in because it will, I guess, alter the flow of the conversation. But here right now, a long time personnel involved with, again, is St. Lawrence Soccer. And Mike has earned the respect of St. Lawrence Soccer. And again, earlier I had Mr. Len Slaney with some great comments. Now I have the current president of St. Lawrence Soccer Association here with some comments that I'd like to pass along to Mike as well. Comes from Hubert Beck, current president of St. Lawrence Soccer Association. Another big loss for soccer Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks, Mike, for the work that you have done. You were always fair, and that's all anyone can expect. And what made you, and that's what made you respected. You gave respect, you were given respect. Thank you a lot. Hubert Beck says good luck as well. Thanks you, Hubert, and now I will let Mike respond to your comments.
Yeah, well, Hubert Beck is a class act guy. A lot of respect. Thank you very much, Hubert. A lot of respect goes out to Hubert in the job that he's done with regards to the administrative role of St. Lawrence Soccer Association. It's funny, I'll say this, anytime we needed anything done on the peninsula with regards to a very meaningful game or final weekend with regards to security or set up for referees or anything, it's a simple pick up the phone, call Hubert, or a simple email, this is what we need, and it's done. When you get down to the field, you see Hubert for 30 seconds, who he's busy going off and doing certain things that he needs to do. Hubert, everything will look after. Mike, it's all good to go. And there was never, ever, ever a question on my behalf on the safety of myself or the other officials down in St. Lawrence. And hats goes off to people like Hubert and the people down there who would be there cheering for their hometown crowd, but they also had a job to do as well. And there's been many times I had to make some decisions down there with ejecting certain players or not making a certain decision and so on. These people respected it, and at the end, anytime I walked off the field, Hubert was always there by the rec center with his hand up to say, good job, thanks a lot, and everything was done. He's another individual I got a lot of respect for that comes out of a big fish in a small market, is the way I want to look at it. And, small, big market, you're going to call St. Lawrence. Their tradition and history down there. But thank you very much, Hubert, for the comments.
Mike, I know going back almost the past decade when I took over as Challenge Cup Commissioner, Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association Senior Men's VP. I think my first meeting that I had outside of the general meeting with Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association, being the executive meeting, it was with you. It was at, I believe, Holiday Inn. Myself and you sat down. At that time, you expressed to me that you felt we need to get on top of discipline in this province. And that was a big concern that had been relayed to you at that time. When I took it over, I felt the only way the game could progress would be that we need officials. And we also need to have discipline so that the officials know that Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association are supporting. You now leaving your position, where do you think that stands today with regards of Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association, given regards and respect to the officials by handling the discipline that needs to be handed out when required? Mike?
There's been significant strides made in the course of time over the last, let's say, 10 years. Gord and me and you have had countless discussions, sit-down meetings, phone calls and so on pertaining to it. I think we've made huge strides. There's probably a good element of people out there these days would think that some of it is too severe, and maybe some of it is. Sometimes the punishment doesn't fit the crime, but the game of soccer is that they're evolving so much, and now the discipline code that's being brought in by the Canadian Soccer Association is very significant. It's something that no matter if you agree or disagree with it, you don't have to like it, but it is what it is, it's what's in place. And people out there now playing these days, players and or coaches, really need to make themselves aware of it. But to go back to the changes that we've made and strides, I think we've done very well. And my hat's off to you, Gord, itself, for taking time over the last number of years and researching other provinces as well. You're a go-to person for that. At the end, I'll say here that I think some penalties were too harsh, and I think some penalties weren't harsh enough. Anytime something becomes a personal target of somebody, I don't think there's any need for that in the game at all, and I'll say that to anybody. Everybody got to get up and go to work the next day. Everybody has a career, has a life, and at no given time should anybody feel threatened based on their gender, race, sexual preference, or even at the job that they think they're doing good enough at the time.
Yeah, it's a new era, Mike, and we've had some issues that came up in the past, I guess more so few years, is be it racial slurs or gender comments. Mike, are we there yet with regards to Newfoundland Labrador Soccer with regards to handling?
I think we are there now. Unfortunately, sometimes in life, and there's no excuse, sometimes something got to happen in order to get better. That's life. Unfortunately, we've had small incidents which we had to get through, and there was major bumps with it. But we are there now. The new discipline code that's out, whether we agree or disagree, covers everything. Some penalties for certain offences are very severe, and at the end, hopefully, this comes in and cleans up the game of soccer. I don't think the game of soccer in this province needs to be cleaned up dramatically at all. There's always some minimum housework that needs to be done, but it's also the prevention is there. People should be aware of this now. If they are guilty of this is what comes with it. And the Challenge Cup schedule, which is a 20-game schedule this year,
each
has 20 games. A severe penalty for something that could be anywhere from 8 to 10 games. I mean, your season is done.
Well, I think really, Mike, the onus is on the association that are responsible for a club to let the players be aware. I think players all should be handed out discipline codes and let them know that this is not being accepted by the NLSA. It's also following the path of Canadian Soccer Association. So really, Mike, and you've been across the country, and myself and you have looked at numerous times what is going on, first of all with the CSA, and what is going on with the other provinces, and then sometimes you look at, okay, what is the penalty that we would issue here? Now, having said that, I would just speak, and I was the chair of discipline at the time, I would speak to Mike, and Mike, I think, Mike, and you just said it, I guess, you know, it is a new era, and it is something that I think players and coaches and fans need to know, because even a fan can get suspended if if he's in the premises of a soccer confined.
100%. I mean, it's funny, we joke about it, and I spoke to Trent McKellen there a short while ago. Trent's funny guy, of course everybody would know Trent. You know, Trent's claim to fame was back then he was the only coloured person playing Challenge Cup soccer.
Yeah.
And back then it was acceptable and jokeable. Now it's more diversity, there's more religious groups, there's more refugees living in Canada. Different religious types of groups, like I use the province of BC, they deal a lot with the Sikhs and the Muslims and so on. I mean, there comes a different element of respect and knowledge of their cultures, which comes into play. At the end, no matter what colour anyone's skin is, what their religious belief or anything else that comes with that, nobody has the right, fan or player or coach or official, to discriminate against anybody. And the biggest issue that comes with this now is there's a bigger emphasis on the officials when it comes time to reporting. It's a huge part of life. I mean, we're looking at now myself, if I'm going to put pen to paper, that's something, let's say, Gord, you're the person who does it. My responsibility is I have to make it very credible and legible, because my writing is going to impact your season. I very well could write down a certain word that could take you out of the league for half the season.
Well, if I had to relay to you what I found, and maybe I'm sure that you're always bringing that forward to the officials that are doing the games. You know, Mike, I found as chair of discipline, I found the weakest area we were in Newfoundland and Labrador with regards to officiating. It wasn't the officials, the referee, or two linesmen, or now they call head official and two assistants. I didn't find that. I found the weakest area that we were in this province, meaning Newfoundland and Labrador, was the officials, how they were doing their write-ups.
Report writing is key. There's been several guidelines that we've given everybody. At the end, you got to get the meat and bones of it. It has to be date, time, place, games, time stamp of the game, and what, Gord, you did to this person, or what this person did to you. It has to be, there can't be any personalities put in it. There can't be any recommendations made by officials and so on. At the end, you have to trust the due process that's out there for the discipline committees to follow. But discipline committees can only do their job based upon what they get as a report itself.
Good day again. With me here today, I have Mike Edmunds. Mike yesterday announced that he is resigning, had handed in his resignation as Director of Officials to Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association. I heard it yesterday through the grapevine, and I made contact with Mike last night, and knowing that I think this would definitely impact this season, and I think it would kind of catch a number of people off guard, I made contact and I asked Mike, would you be able to do an early Gord cast? And here we are. So for those of you that may be later joining in, Mike Edmunds is here with me today at my home doing Gordcast live stream, and we are discussing the resignation of Mike Edmunds from the Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association as Director of Officials. Now I will go back to Mike.
As I said, Gord, previously, with me, this is merely just strictly, I don't have the time to put into the system at all. New career, new look at life. I'm not turning my back on soccer at all. I'm still going to make a trip down to the peninsula for a weekend to see people, to hopefully evaluate the officials. I'll still be refereeing locally. I coach a young under 15 girls team that I've been involved with for the last 5 years. So I want to see them out for this year itself. at the end, if anybody ever needs anything from me, they can always pick up the phone and call. I'll never see a body in the province stuck for advice or anything. What I'm gonna miss is I've kind of missed a lot of the last couple of years, is the battles, is the rivalries. For a number of years, it was just a couple of teams that were, significant rivalries. And now there's a lot more parity in the league the last couple of years, with the rise of CBS Soccer in the Challenge Cup, who are going to be a stronger team. Feelings that are coming on and stream a lot. New entity, Paradise, into the league this year. I wish all those clubs all the best. But I've had many fond memories of games involving with Holy Cross and St. Lawrence, Montpearl and St. Lawrence. They had a bit of a rivalry, good rivalry in my peak time of officiating, Holy Cross and Montpearl itself. And even when I first started for a couple of years, when Marystown was still into it, being involved there with Marystown, I have a lot of fond memories at the pitch in Marystown as well. A lot of good memories. I won't get into any type of names and stories, but there are a couple that really do stick out. I'll use one for an example, and I still talk about it with young Paul Slaney. Whenever I see Paul around, I was in St. Lawrence refereeing, and it was Montpearl versus St. Lawrence on a weekend, and I went down with John Humby. John Humby, who's not in very good health these days now himself, former great referee. Myself and John and Mario Simon, everyone's favourite scapegoat in St. Lawrence, Torment Mario. We went down, and I ended up refereeing the game, and it was the second half. It was an incident that happened at the net down by the fire hall. A player from Montpearl slid into the goal area, or 6-yard box as we call it, and he 2 feet studs up tackle on John Douglas. He really got him bad. So of course in those situations, everybody on the field gets involved. There's a melee here and there. And by the time you're in blowing the whistle, pulling people aside, and you're dealing with situations, I gave the player from Montpearl a red card for serious foul play. And I picked a player from St. Lawrence to a red card, and it was Paul Slaney. And I remember doing it to Paul right around the top of the D, and Paul immediately looked at me, and I won't use the language that he said, but it was, Mike, for sake, Clinton hit him first, I hit him second.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and I remember the incident.
And I remember laughing at Paul, looking at Paul, and I said, "Really, you're going to say that to me?"
Yeah.
And Paul walked off the field, and he walked over towards center, and he said to Junior Edwards, gave him good job going to the change room. And then he started kind of getting angry with Junior by saying, "Clinton hit him first, I hit him second."
Yeah.
And John Humby always told me the story. John said he looked at him and said, "Don't rat your players out, shut up and go to the change room." And it was just so funny. It's one of the big things that's kind of stick out at the time.
Yeah.
And I still joke with Paul. I worked for Paul with Paul for a couple of years, and we still joke about it to this day. And he always gets a fine kick out of it.
Yeah, there's a comment coming in from lifetime St. Lawrence Laurentian soccer fans. St. Lawrence obviously have a lot of respect for you. This comes from Justin Murray. Justin says, "You're always welcome at the Trophy Lounge, Mike, especially on St. Lawrence Day." The one that I remember...
Justin's a good guy.
Yeah, the one that I remember, and you'll know who it is, it's the late Keedy Welsh, young Keedy Welsh.
Good guy.
And he was what we would call in Newfoundland the devil skin, always provoking, initiating, but there was no bigger love of the game than as a fan would be Keedy Welsh. And Keedy wrote on, may have been on the Laurentian website at the time, he said, after the game was over, we had Mike brought in for St. Lawrence Day. And after the game was over, I went out, he said, on the field, and I was taking up the flags. And he said, when I picked up the flags, the corner flags and that, walking down the middle of the St. Lawrence soccer field, I picked up a watch. And the watch, he said, or a cell phone, I'm sorry. He said, I picked up the cell phone. When I picked up the cell phone said, 3 missed calls. And he said, immediately and automatically, I knew that was belonging to Mike Edmunds. Can you remember that?
I remember that all too well. Keith Welch, God rest his soul, very good guy, very nice fella. I tell you a Keith Welch story. Keith used to live out in Bay Roberts, Harbour Grace area, Gord.
Yeah.
And of course, soccer on the peninsula, Keith would never miss it, or if it was in town, he'd never miss it at all. And somehow, through a grapevine in soccer, he found out I was going out the weekend to referee, so he called me. And he called me on a Friday evening and said, on Thursday, and said, Mike, you're going out the weekend, I'm home, yeah. Can I get a ride? Sure, no problem, Keith. And he said, I'll help out with gas. I said, Keith, don't worry. I said, that's all taken care of. And I said, well, Keith, first of all, where are you to? Like, I don't know where you live. We're going to pick you up. And he said, I live in Bay Roberts, Harbour Grace. Or whatever he said. And I was like, okay. Don't you worry. You tell me the time you're leaving St. John's and I'll meet you on the side of the highway. So it was on a Friday evening. So by God, I called him when I left St. John's. And he was there on the side of the road with the bag waiting for me. And he jumped in the car. So I joked with Keith the whole way going down to St. Lawrence. I said, now listen, Keith, you're going to have to ease up on me the weekend because I can't be seen driving you down here and then driving you home.
Yeah.
So Keith was always a straightforward individual. Anyways, Sunday's game I did in St. Lawrence that weekend wasn't the easiest. It was a difficult game. No doubt I probably made a few blunders of calls, and I don't think I was very high on anyone's Christmas card list after that game.
Yeah.
And you remember during the game, of course, as a referee, I always hear everything, from comments that people would say and so on. But I always hear everything. And Keith passed a comment, pretty very sharp comment during the game, but in his mind it was justified. And when the game was over and he was walking, he was kind of looking out the corner of his eye, staring at me. And I said, after that comment, you can walk home. Just joking with Keith, but I said it and I put my head down and walked in the change room.
Yeah.
Anyways, 10 minutes passed, filled out the game sheets, quickly got changed, would you like to leave and go on home? When I walked out the hallway, Keith was there very apologetic. And he was like, Mike, I'm sorry. He said, sorry for what I said. He said, it's just a passion. He said, if you want me to get a ride home with somebody else, I can. I said, Keith, no, go put your bag in the car, my buddy. I'm only joking with you. I'll give him the tormenting him back as Keith would always give to all of us.
Yeah. I know on the watching here throughout the Gord cast here this morning, I have Raylene Baggs is on there, Mike, and we have Nicole Moores. And Nicole, obviously a strong advocate of women's soccer in the province, and she's been with Kirby for the past decade. And she makes a comment, you will be missed, Mike, and I know it's yourself and myself. We came on board, Mike, and we're strong advocates of women's soccer, and I would think, Mike, you have seen women's soccer to a degree today that you would feel has strived, and with regards to where are we at with women officiating in the game, Mike?
First of all, thanks to Nicole. Nicole, I come through the system with Nicole, Raylene, who's on, my cousin Raylene. These individuals have been instrumental in getting women's soccer to where it is to today. Like anything, there's been bumps in the road. I'm sure Nicole's faced several bumps, but Nicole, by all means, keep doing what you're doing. I told you that from day one. Keep doing what you're doing and just take things all in stride. With regards to women officiating in the province, we have right now a core group of women officials. No, we don't. Sadly, we don't. We don't have a woman or any women officials to put into high-level games just yet. But there's an awful lot of things in play here. We've had, over the last 3 years, we have a significant amount of 15, 16, 17-year-old girls that have come in doing the entry level, the first-year refereeing courses. There are significant plans in place to take these individuals and move them through. The downside to it is most of these kids still play, and that's the downside. I played. I was told from Brian Walsh, play or ref. And when I told him I didn't know, he said, well, if you continue to play, I'll make the decision for you. You'll referee.
Well, Mike, we have the Premier Leagues in the province, and that will be male and female. I think now the age groups on that, I think
13, 15, and 17.
13, it has changed, right? From 14, 16, and 18. Now it's at 13, 15, and 70. Why can't we have women and females involved in the female Premier League in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador?
We do. There are young officials that are doing these games. There's one young official around the age of 17, 18, who is very high on our radar list with officials. This official did very well there last year into the summer games. And we have some things in mind for it, but at the end, we can only push and put people to a certain part if they want to go as well. Mm-hmm. If the end people still want to play, by all means, I strongly encourage that. A lot of kids we have now are in this under 15 provincial youth league. So our hope and goal is to have a lot of them doing the under 13 games. And if need be sometimes, put them in under 17. They're not going to hurt the game of soccer at all. And people need to realize that without officials, the game won't go off.
Well, that's where I'm coming from. And I felt, to be honest with you, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are a female, 3 daughters and a son. I felt back when I know my second daughter, Lori, had come to me on a number of occasions, and she said, Dad, she'd like to get involved. And I brought it forward, Mike, at that time. But, there wasn't a lot of female soccer on the Burin Peninsula. We've had it, but it kind of came in and would die out. But I felt it really, the opportunity wasn't there for my kids to get involved in the officiating, and I was involved at a high level. So I know you're saying here now, so you're saying now, Mike, if somebody wants to get involved, the opportunity is there. The opportunity is there
100%, Gord, and the sky's the limit, especially for females.
Yeah.
Some provinces are blessed with numbers.
Yeah.
To be able to use especially the females. We're not. The opportunity is totally there for us, though, with a couple of individuals that we do have our eyes set on. And once the time is right, this province will definitely stand behind us, pushing these individuals and supporting them. I use one referee, for example, Caroline Chenard from Ottawa.
Yeah.
Talking about people I went through the system with, I refereed with Caroline. Caroline is my age. She's been at 2 World Cups. She just recently refereed the Olympic final in Brazil.
Yeah.
And she just recently she just did a couple of games in the She Believes Cup in the US. Caroline is one of the top females in the world. Hats go off to Caroline and everything she's had to endure along the way. She's refereed at a very high level of male competition, and in the female competition, the female eyes, she's up there. She's one of the top ones in the whole world. And compliments to her, she did an Olympic final. An Olympic final for somebody coming from Canada is coming from any part of the world is a huge feat. And for Caroline, especially being Canadian, and her 2 assistants from Canada, it shows where the program is going.
I see here also joining in this morning is a former great in soccer player, a former great official. It's Lynn Hillier, Mike, and he said he's glad to see you on Gordcast, and he's also makes a further comment here right now. And again, the comment is coming from Lynn Hillier. Always admired being part of your team, Mike.
Thank you very much, Lynn. When I came into the program, I had John Humbies, Len Hillier, Mario Simon, Brian Walsh, the late Ross Arlett. For a couple of years I was still involved. Gene Thompson, Kevin Pittman, Rob Entel, Ern Foote, who was finished refereeing, was still involved as an evaluator. I had those people to carry me along, and those people did carry me along, and they were very, very tough and brutally honest with me going through the chain and the channels. But they hats go off people like Lynn Hillier, utmost admiration, very tough, stern-nosed individual as a referee, and my time is knowing Lynn, and he helped me. I developed some tricks and tools from all these different officials, and definitely something from the likes of Lynn.
Mike, if there was one person, I think in life, there's always, no matter what avenue you take, there's always that one person. If you had to name one person that has helped you the most to get to the level that you are today, I don't think, that this is the end of Mike Edmunds. This is the end of your title. But if there was one person in officiating now, or in the sport of soccer that got Mike Edmunds to be a provincial, recognized, respected name in all of the province in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I can say that, guys, for all of Canada, because I have traveled Canada, and whenever I spoke officiating, I feel the one name that really, okay, before you, it probably was, and I don't want to have no disregard to anyone else. I think it may have been Rob Antle, but then it came next to Rob Antle, and kind of Rob has sort of moved on, and I think it's his career and his family that has taken him somewhat away from the game. Give me that one person, Mike, that you would have. One, not three.
One person solely would have to be Brian Walsh. You know, I've known Brian Walsh for X number of years. At the age of when I was 17, I played in the 97 Nationals, the Snickers Cup in BC. When I played our St. John's team, we won our provincial championships that year and we went away. The following year, funny enough, oddly enough, I got myself into car trouble when I was playing. And I was read the riot act from many people, including Brian Walsh. And it wouldn't be fair to say what was said to me here on Gordcast. But I was told from Brian that there was potential. I was pushed. Brian did come to my house at the time and speak to my parents as well. And Brian is a very brutally honest guy. And he told Mom and Dad what could happen with me. And every so often Brian would follow up, and Brian was instrumental. I don't like the fact of just single out one person because there's been many, many others as well, but starting the track off would have to be Brian. My hat has got to go off to Jean Thompson for everything she's done, Rob Antle, Kev Pittman. I mean, these are people who laid the track for me for refereeing in the national list itself. Local people, Len Hillier, who's on, John Humby. I mean, everybody's got a Humby story. I got many with John. Just different regular people. And you know, at the end too, primarily where I've been, my hat has got to go off to a lot of numerous players. I started refereeing when St. Lawrence was the powerhouse. They were the top team. Nobody could touch them. And I got to see certain players and certain individuals. And I'll never forget a comment Bobby Spearn said to me on the field. This was on a game where, at the time, there was some rivalry going on between St. Lawrence and Feely. Something had happened. And I'm only young here. And Rob Antle was brought in, to do the game, and they were shorthanded. And they put me on the game. And, of course, it full of, just vinegar, ready to do a good job. And for the whole first half, I from the line, I held a very tight offside line, and a couple of times Bob Spearn passed comments to the rest of his back line by saying, the young fellow's running a tight line, be careful. And then something happened earlier in the first half, and Rob dealt with it, gave a card or two, and there was somebody looking for a bit extra. And Bob's comment out loud was, the young fellow over there seems to know what he's doing, so don't blame him for it. And he said it to one of his own teammates. And walking off the field at half time, he came by, he gave me a little pat on the arse and said, good job. Hopefully you do it for the rest of the game. And I remember that, he didn't need to do that at all, but he decided to do it. And, I always remember that part with Bob, right?
One incident, I like one-on-ones. I think they are very effective, and I think the audience like listening to individuals that are been regarded and have been around the sport. One incident that occurred from any time you officiated, from be it minor to senior, one incident that you would feel is an incident that if you had to write a book tomorrow, that incident would be in there and it forever and a day will remain with you. Mike?
Specific incidents itself, I would definitely have to look at. I remember there was a game in Montpearl between Holy Cross and Montpearl. Players at that time, Jake Sanford was coaching, and John Hocko, who was a very skilled player, wasn't having the best of all games, and John Hocko was getting fouled around 22 yards out, so I blew a quick whistle. As I blew the quick whistle, John quickly spun at the same time and volleyed the ball into the top corner of the net. And as soon as he hit it, after the whistle was blown, all I could do was just hang my head in shame, because I knew it happened. Holy Cross were upset. Mount Pearl were like, good call, Mike, good call. Jake was doing a dancing jig from the technical area down to the corner flag. And all I could say, look at the guys from Holy Cross in the face and say, guys, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. And they were like, what are you going to do about it? I can't do anything. Put the ball down here and kick it. Take the free kick. I can't do anything. I've made a mistake. You know, back in doing a game in Jubilee many years ago, one team, I won't get into the team name because it'll come out, but one team had 12 players on the field. And they scored. And the coach of the other team was absolutely going ballistic. And it was more so, it was a hot Saturday. Interest wasn't in there for girls. It wasn't interest me for the officials. It was a hot day. Nobody really wanted to be there. And I made a major mistake. And in that case, luckily, the team that was robbed at the time on the scoreboard won the game. Because I felt really guilty for it after. Because, you know, officials need to have a high level of concentration and so on. The team scored. The team played for about 10 minutes with 12 players.
Mike?
And they scored.
Yeah, and what could you do?
Yeah.
Anyway, Mike, always, like I see, I'm a big follower. Soccer is my number one sport. But during the winter in Canada, I'm like every other Canadian. I'm a big hockey fan, and especially I followed the NHL. And I know like Merchant, Brad Merchant with Boston there, and Cadre with Maple Leafs. You know, I would think they are, obviously the officials would discuss them, and so would, I guess, the safety committee they call now. One player, or maybe it could be two, Mike, that would have given you knew when that guy stepped on the field, that you had your hands full, but he would almost he was intelligent enough to take it to the limit, but not over the limit. Or any one person that absolutely gave you a hard time, Mike?
It's a tough question. I don't want to say anything to be misinterpreted either.
Yeah.
By some things, it's very easy to be misinterpreted in life. I felt people gave it to me in any level, but they respected at the end of the day my decision. Respect I felt was always shown. There's been sometimes once I started being promoted and developed and doing these national list games, certain people kind of held me into a higher regard then, and they would pass stupid snide comments about, oh, you know, don't forget now, we're not MLS, this is Newfoundland soccer, this is how we do things. That type of jargon and foolishness. One player who, when I started refereeing, who was a handful, he was a handful of many reasons, was Jeremy Taylor from Marystown.
Okay, yeah.
Right? A handful of many reasons with Jeremy. And Jeremy had constant struggles on the field with his opposition and his teammates. And then you had to juggle that and you had to deal with it. And, you know, every referee will have tricks, tools of the trade that you would develop from other people. Probably fans would help you out, or teammates, other officials. And Jeremy was a handful. He was a handful. Many players from the days of the St. Lawrence being so strong were, a handful of players. They played hard, and were respected, had my respect. They didn't give me an overall hard time, but they held you to a high regard. And one person I'll use out would be, Dr. Paul Slaney, very class act individual. When Paul played, Paul let you know what was acceptable and not acceptable. And when he wanted you to blow the whistle, not blow the whistle. And he'd be the first one to help defend you as an official, but he'd be the first one to tell you as well that, you did wrong. And he even carried that into his days of being a coach and so on. And that man primarily is somebody who I have an awful lot of respect for. Another person, I got to say, who was a handful, and I can say I refereed him for a lot of years, and I consider him a good friend. His wife was a good friend of mine. Would be Rudy Norman. You know, it's funny, I gave a speech at their wedding when I gave Rudy a watch, because until King George put the scoreboard up, he was the biggest nuisance. I was asking me how much time was left.
Okay, he was always asking.
He was always asking me. And then I gave Karen a set of yellow and red cards to deal with him when she saw fit. Rudy, you know, very good guy. Class act guy, played very, very, very hard. And earned the respect of a lot of people, primarily myself. It's funny, I can't remember what year it was, but it was in Montpearl on Upper Smallwood. It was the year that Holy Cross had the resurgence, and they won. They beat St. Lawrence in extra time that year. I ejected Rudy from the game that day, and it's nothing personal. It's just a job that I had to do at the time, and there was never any malice held towards it. Myself and Rudy, we had our own conversation on the topic later on in life, and everything's all fine.
I remember that as well. Him and the captain of
him and Ryan Yetman.
Ryan Yetman, captain of Holy Cross.
Yeah, that was very, very tough. It was a tough decision, but you know, everyone got a job to do. But he's really somebody I got a lot of respect for as well. I got a lot of respect for a lot of players, but people who stand out like that. Rudy himself, longevity. Mark Reddy, I played against Mark. Grew up with Mark, the same age, probably at a younger age, probably partied with Mark. A lot of respect for him. You know, Mark had his times on the field where he's a little bit difficult at times with officials. Never overly difficult with me. Great guy. You know, on and off the field, and now he's getting a little bit more involved with soccer himself too. And the program's in great hands if Mark is getting involved, right? Good guy himself.
Another comment coming in from a great soccer personality in St. Lawrence, the father of a great soccer player, and he says, "Good luck, Mike," and that comes from Ren Edwards.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
You know, again, I used his name earlier. Clinton. We're the same age. We played provincial team for a year. Good guy, heart of gold. And Clinton was a player on the field that if you ever had a problem, you go to him and say, "Clinton, straighten this up, or I will." No problem. And Clinton's comment would be, "Give me a minute," and he'd deal with it. Played hard, super hard all the time. Played fair. You know, many fond memories of St. Lawrence itself, and I don't know if this individual follows Gordcast, if he's able to or not, but I got to pass a comment. He's a very unique individual from down there. It would be Carl Tarrant.
Yeah, okay.
Carl, I'm sure everybody would say, is unique in many ways, but Carl was never stuck. Never, ever, ever stuck for a word. And I remember I did my first final was in 2005. I went away to school at that time, and I came home that weekend for Labor Day weekend. And that was when St. John's was hosting Canada-Germany U17. I did the final, my first final, Marystown against St. Lawrence, King George, grass. And it was a 3-1 final for, I think it's 3-1 or 3-0 for St. Lawrence. Richard Kelly, top player, scored 2 amazing goals. One from like 40 yards out. He had a rocket of a shot. Anyways, Mom and Dad were really excited to go down and watch me, you know, but they're also very nervous. They sat in a section over in the stands where after the first 5 minutes, they needed to move. They perched themselves right between the Marystown St. Lawrence crowd, and it was the wrong place to be. And they ended up moving themselves twice during the whole game, and they found other family to sit with. And when the game was over, I walked off the field, everyone was all ecstatic. St. Lawrence fans were ecstatic because they won. I walked off the field, and Carl Tarrant stopped me. He was there in his chair, and he wheeled himself over, and at that point my parents were walking in the direction of me. And Carl said, "Young fella, you didn't do that bad. I only had to speak to you 3 times.
Okay, yeah.
And of course Mom and Dad were like, "What is this? What's going on here?" You know? And that was of course a comment from Carl. And ever since that, if I've ever seen a man, I always go over to have a chat with him, talk to him. You know, he's never stuck for a word, and I'm sure if someone's listening, they can pass it on to him.
Mike, did you ever have the pleasure of officiating a game in lawn?
No.
You didn't? Okay.
I've heard many stories. There was a time that I was almost brought down to lawn for a game.
Yeah.
But I guess at that point they didn't want to overexpose a 17-year-old.
Okay, so you were young, and I tell you what,
Yeah.
I played with the Laurentians against Lawn. I played with the Shamrocks. I coached the Laurentians, and I coached Lawn. And if there was ever one game that I could ever pick that in a season that I could only watch one game, it would be between St. Lawrence and Lawn, but in Lawn. It was special, Mike.
I've heard lots of stories from former players to people who are still around playing Masters and stuff now, officials. Kev Pittman has told me numerous stories about being in Lawn. I kept saying to myself, man, I only wish I could go down there. Brian Walsh has told me numerous stories. Listening to players, yourself, Gord, and so on. Unfortunately, I have to say I wasn't down there. I haven't been down there to do a game. Too bad, because at that point of when I started, I was only being primarily used for on the line doing games.
Okay, so
and at the tail end, then once I went into the middle of the line, we pretty much finished then.
Yeah. Okay. So like the past weekend, I'm sure you know of those.
Roderick, Colin Edwards,
Colin Edwards went into the Provincial Hall of Fame, and rightfully so.
Don't know the individuals at all, but anything I've heard from people, Roderick was one hell of a goalie. That's what someone said. He was excellent. They said he was excellent in the net. Colin Edwards, they said he was a smart left back, very fluid. Overall, I'd be lying if somebody told me a bad word about him, because nothing but praise and respect for those two men. Well, sadly, I never had a chance to be involved with soccer with them.
Yeah, I played with Colin, and I coached Colin, and Colin is a special shamrock. Roderick, I would myself, if somebody for me to name the best goalie in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, my number one would be Al Slaney from St. Lawrence. And the second one that I've seen in, say, that would be 40 years now, I would have to go with Roderick. Roderick won, we'll say, 3 Challenge Cups. And I would think all 3 Challenge Cups, the one in Lawn, he stopped cross on the penalty shots. And the 2 in Bjorn, one he stopped penalty shots. And the other one, it was, I believe, 1-0 shutout. So I think
he has a good name.
Yeah, they definitely earned their. Yeah. Anyway, Mike, and just give me 1 second. With me today, guys, here again. I'm at the end of an hour. I had the pleasure of speaking to Mike Edmunds. Mike Edmunds has been one of the best officials to ever come out of Newfoundland and Labrador. That's in my opinion. Also, Mike Edmunds gave it his all as Director of the Officials. Yesterday, Mike Edmunds, there was an announcement made. It didn't come to me, but it was passed on to Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association that Mike Edmunds hand in his resignation as Director of Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association, Director of Officials. Last night I made contact with Mike, and I asked Mike, because of Mike's schedule, would he be able to do a Gordcast live stream early tomorrow morning, which is today, prior to going to work. Mike agreed. Again, I thank him for that. Now I will get back to Mike, and we will finish up with 2 questions to Mike Edmunds. And again, I thank Mike Edmunds. And according to all comments coming in here today, I think Mike Edmunds undoubtedly has earned the respect of Newfoundland and Labrador soccer. And I be one to endorse that to the highest degree. For me, I think he's one of the best. There were greats, and it's hard, like you say, and I tried to pin you and make it difficult for you, because if it's not difficult, everyone can do it. But I remember the greats, Earnfoot, we had Robbie Antle, and we had yourself there, Mike. And again, I'm not saying that's the final, but I would think if I had to name a top 5, since I can remember the officials doing the game, I think those 3 would be in the group of 5. And having said who would the other 2 be, I would have to look at all the names. So that goes back a long way, Mike. And I think, Mike, although you're dropping the title, and I think you're making the right move, I think you know when the time comes for you. And I feel, I'm glad you didn't stay in that position too long. You got in, you did a job, move on, and we'll get another position, another person in that position for a certain time frame, and we will go on, and you will carry on with the soccer in a different, I think, from a different perspective. You won't have to answer so many emails because obviously your job, he's got a new job. Anyway, I will go back to Mike.
Thank you, Gord. It's been a long hour. For me, to anybody, I'm not walking away from the game itself. I have too much love and passion for the game and too much respect for individuals that are involved. Anybody ever has any questions, concerns, I'm sure my phone will still ring about this and that. People in Challenge Cup and Jubilee and coaches of Provincial League can definitely contest that. I was always available and reachable for these individuals if they ever had any type of concerns. And the same goes out to anybody from any clubs and so on. 6 years into it, I got a lot of emails kept. I got a lot of knowledge stored up in the head here. Anything I can do to help anybody along the way. But my time is up. I needed to move on. I need to focus on my career. But I'm still going to referee the game of soccer that I truly love, and still go down on a scattered Wednesday or Saturday or Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday night to do a game or be involved in just watching.
Well, I know a job that I wouldn't ask anybody to do, but I obviously am. I'd be very careful who I would ask to join me at any time, because obviously all of this is live streamed and is on the air. But I will kindly invite you on occasion to join me and do some color when I'm doing live streaming of a soccer game, Mike. Yeah. Throughout the summer, and it'll be from time to time. I won't have any schedule or anything, Mike. So that's something that I think that you have great ability to do. I thank you today for this interview, and I wish you nothing but all the best going forward, and especially with your career. I know you're devoted, and you will aim high, you will shoot high, and you will achieve high. Mike, you have the final words, and again, I thank you for joining me today.
I'll just finish by saying thank you to everybody. Everybody's out there over the course of time. Thank you to whoever has helped in their involvement in soccer, helped me in my development of an official, helped in any type of comments, compliments, concerns, criticism. At the end, it all makes everybody better. The only thing I want to say to anybody going forward here is keep doing what you're doing, people out there in soccer. Newfoundland is a big soccer environment, but at the end, we're still small in numbers. The game of soccer has got to be put first and foremost, not individual personalities or own ambitions. Collectively, the game has got to keep going, and I think we're going in the right direction. I really do. There's going to be some bumps in the road. I get it, but thank you to everybody. Thank you, Gord, for having me as well. And like I say, I'll see everybody around, and I'm sure the games are going to start sometime in May, whenever the schedule is released, and we'll see everybody there.
Yesterday, Mike, I saw that Western, being Cornerbrook, has withdrawn from the league. Mm-hmm. I made comments that I think in order to have a true provincial league, that we sort of need Cornerbrook. I felt I would encourage Cornerbrook to reevaluate their program, and I'd love to see them back into Premier Soccer in the league, especially at the Challenge Cup level. And I would think it would be the same thing from you, Mike.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Cornerbrook, people better, let's not forget, there wasn't a long time ago, Cornerbrook had a top squad come final weekend, and they were only a couple blunders away from being in the final, and if not potentially winning it, because anything can happen then. Geography hurts them, there's no doubt, and I sympathise with them. the distance they have to travel. But then again, geography can't be a determining factor, because we look at what St. Lawrence does year after year, plus any other team on the Burin Peninsula that has been around, but they don't travel as much in distance as what Western would do, and I get it. But to be a true provincial league, yes, you would want somebody from every soccer market, whether it be Central, West Coast, Peninsula, Labrador, and so on. But I just get it that was just not going to happen. But I would definitely like to see Western back in. I got some good memories from out in Western as well. So.
And that's the same way I feel. In concluding, Mike, again, I thank you for joining Gorecast live stream. Mike announced yesterday, or he passed on to Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association, that he was stepping down as Director of NLSA Officials. And again, I thank Mike for joining in. And again, Mike, moving forward career-wise, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Gord.